55566.
One of the most common questions those nearing retirement are asking, will I outlive my money? Retirement questions like these and many more will be answered every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement with hosts Francois and Julian Pozenet. Francois and Julian will help you put your retirement puzzle together. Catch Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement Saturdays at 9 a.m. on Ocala's News Talk, The Source 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Monday morning. It is a federal holiday. It is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
I almost said Jr. first. Birthday. Actually, his birthday is the 15th. I don't have the information in front of me, but I'm pretty sure. But today is the day that we remember the contributions of Dr. King, and I wanted to talk about specifically Ocala and specifically this part of the state of the country. So it doesn't have to be just Ocala, the county, etc. Especially if you lived here. If you lived here before things were integrated or desegregated is maybe the better word. By the way, there is right now probably, I think, did the march start at 9 or did it start at 8? Do you know?
I believe it started at 9. They were gathering at 7, and then they had a program at 8, and then the march was going to step off at 9.
Okay. And the march goes from the town square to the Ed Kroski Center?
Yes.
Oh, to the Martin Luther King Recreation Complex.
Right, which is the E.D. Kroski Center. It's the whole same area.
So this is the 30th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. commemorative celebration, and so I wanted to talk about it, and I'm inviting you to call in, especially if you are African American. I would like to know what life was like if you lived here, or maybe somewhere else, and you want to share with what it was like for you where you lived. It all starts, I guess, with slavery. I mean, when you decide at one point in your life, in the life of human beings, that you're going to take other people and actually consider them property and own them. And the way you're going to differentiate between those who are the owned people and those who are the owners is by race. That sets you up for big problems in the future that probably should have been seen right off the bat, right?
Right.
Okay, so our country has this history where we had slaves. We had slaves in every single state, I guess. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I know we had slaves up north as well as down south. So I just want to make sure that you know that I know that, because I often get that argument, and I don't want to get stuck on that. I really want to talk about how we've improved and how we have made some big changes, although it is interesting and insightful to really kind of remember the past as well. So then came the decisions by the states to abolish slavery, to put an end to slavery. All of the states didn't do this, and therefore the Emancipation Proclamation was declared by President Lincoln, as you know. And those who said he didn't really free the slaves in all the states, he only freed the slaves in certain states, you're absolutely right. But here's because that's often an argument with me. They'll say the Emancipation Proclamation only freed the slaves in the southern states. Mm-hmm. Well, that's because they were already freed in the other states.
Yeah.
You wouldn't tell, if you have two children and they each have their own bedroom, and they've both been told to clean up the bedroom, but only one has. Mm-hmm. You don't tell the one who has to clean up his bedroom. You tell the one who hasn't to clean up his bedroom, right? Well, that's what the Emancipation Proclamation was. Now, all of a sudden, there was this mission to combat that, which we call the Civil War. And I'm not trying to give you a history because I know you know it already, but I wanted to say something about the Johnny Reb statue, and then I want to move on to the real important part of today with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
To me, the Johnny Reb statue, which has been very controversial here in Ocala, has had its issues because people think that the soldiers who fought for the Confederacy were fighting to keep slavery. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that they were convinced that they were fighting to keep states' rights. Mm-hmm. That's what they believed.
Yeah.
Now, many of those same soldiers probably believed in freeing the slaves. Mm-hmm. Although, ultimately, when you look at the big picture, it was about slavery. The the message to the soldiers that you're fighting to protect states' rights was the motivation behind getting them to fight in the first place. Because a lot of these guys that were fighting in the Civil War for the Confederacy had friends who were African American because they were friends with the slaves.
Yeah.
Not to say that it was still good to have slaves as friends. I'm just saying a lot of them really thought, I don't see why you couldn't work just like I work. If you read some of the books that were written back then, that's absolutely the truth. All right, now catapult forward. So the Civil War was history, and now you catapult forward to the 1960s when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made a big, big impact. It took 100 years from the Emancipation Proclamation until Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we still hadn't corrected all of the wrongs. Now, for those of you who are not black and you have not lived through this, and I'm not black and I haven't lived through this, but we've spoken to enough that I get it. It's not just about being equal, but it's about being treated equal. It's two different things. If the law says you're equal, but you're not treated equal, what good is the law? So we had segregation. We had segregation here. We had kind of a covert segregation up in New York that I remember. I mean, we had Jerome Robinson, who happens to be a black man, who's a talented musician, lived in a town named Freeport on Long Island. He's just about our age. He's about 60.
Yeah.
So he grew up on Long Island the same time I grew up on Long Island. We're talking about New York, not the South. And while things were not segregated in the way they were here, Freeport, the town he grew up in, anybody who knows Long Island, especially, he's probably still the same, knows that Freeport is predominantly a black town. And it's one town away from the town I grew up in, which is Merrick, which was predominantly a white town. Now, how did that happen? You think that was by design or by real estate agents being told, hey, here's what you need to do. If a black person wants a house, you sell it over there. White person wants a house, you sell it over here. I don't know. I've often wondered that. And for us white kids, there was really no great movie theater in Merrick, so we took the train and we went to Freeport. Yeah. And we hung out with the black kids, watched movies.
Yeah.
and that's probably how it was here in Ocala, too, except for the fact that it was officially separated, officially segregated here, whereas up there was unofficial and covert.
Right.
This is my feeling. This is what I experienced. And Jerome seemed to agree with that when he was here.
Yeah, he did.
All right, so now let's talk about what it was like to live here. I would love to know. I have some sound bites. We had a wonderful lady in the studio named Juanita Cunningham some years ago. And last year, she was featured on the Star Banner website. And I hope it's okay. I have some sound bites from that visit that she made to the Star Banner, or that they made. I think they made it to her home, actually. So I wanted to play some of those sound bites for you. And the first one is, I don't have my notes, but I think I could do it from memory. I think the first one is she's recalling what it was like because things were starting to change when her children were little. And here it is. Things were starting to change when her children were little, and she didn't want her children to have to experience what she experienced.
Yeah, it was an honor having her in our show.
We had guests in our studio who remembered Paradise Park when Silver Springs was white people only.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Paradise Park was black people only. And when you look at the pictures, everybody looks like they're having fun. So they're separated. We're with the white people. They're with the black people. Everybody's having fun. But still, think about what the job market must have been like for them.
Yeah.
If we still had that kind of mentality, how did a black man at that time really get taken seriously when he was applying for a good job? It probably didn't happen. And if you went through this, I would love to hear from you. Let me just play a little clip from Juanita Cunningham. She was a principal. She was a teacher. A huge contributor to this community. This is her remembering when her son had to use the bathroom one time. Here we go.
We were in McCrory's, and my son, who was 6 at that time, wanted to use the restroom. I refused to carry him across the street to the courthouse. I brought him back home so that he could go to the bathroom. And en route home, He said to me, he said, Mom, won't you be glad when cooperation comes? I said, yes, Jim, I'll be happy when things are desegregated. He knew why I wouldn't take him to the courthouse. I was not going to take him into that colored toilet.
So, there you go.
Yes.
That's in her lifetime, which is our lifetime. We'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Beautiful day today with plenty of sunshine. The high 66 to 70. Clear to partly cloudy skies tonight with a low of 41 in a few inland spots, 51 along the coast. A mix of clouds and sun tomorrow with a high of 69 to 73. And on Wednesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine, the high 71 to 75. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
This message brought to you by Urban Cardiology. Jersey Mike's Subs is giving away their subs. That's right, January 12th through the 19th, buy one sub and get the second of equal value or less for only a $2 donation to Kid Genius right here in Ocala. Kid Genius provides resources for kids with autism, like early detection, outreach programs, and more. So the next time you're hungry, pop into Jersey Mike's on Easy Street for a great tasting sub and help Kid Genius. But hurry, this is a limited time offer. For more information about Kid Genius, visit kidgeniusinc.org. Keep up with what's going on in the downtown area with Ocala Downtown Newspaper. Delivering thousands of newspapers to businesses in the downtown area, Ocala Downtown is there to keep you informed. They even have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask in return is that you tell them where you heard about it. It's simple. For more info, just call Tom's Picks, 352-804-1223, and pick up your copy of the Downtown Ocala newspaper today. Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
All right, 14 minutes now before 10 o'clock. The phone lines are open, by the way, if you want to call in and comment. If you want to comment on the what life was like during the days of segregation, right? Separation. We were separating ourselves from one another, even though the laws had changed, the culture hadn't changed, and I'll be the first to admit it, although it really was a hard pill to swallow for me, that while in the South it was segregation almost like a law, in the North it was segregation almost like this unspoken law. And I think, some of you might disagree. I can remember wanting to go see because I was really into music, and some of my favorite musicians happened to be black, and they would all play in Harlem.
Yeah.
But do you think I was allowed to go to Harlem?
Probably not when you were young.
No, I was not allowed to go. I think mostly for safety's sakes. My parents, I'm sure, were worried that I'd be hurt or something. Good morning. You're on the air. Thank you for calling.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. In the North, it wasn't, with the force of law, but there were some insidious things like a lot of the unions were segregated. They were at one time two different branches of the musicians' union, a white branch and a black branch. There were unions that were so-called father and son unions, where you had to be a relative of a member in order to join the union, and there were a lot of industries that were, if you weren't a member of the union, you couldn't get the job. So basically, black people couldn't apply for those jobs because there was no way they could get into the union.
Sure, yeah.
And the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers was one of these unions. The Pressmen's Union with the newspapers was another notorious union. The Longshoremen's Association was a notorious union like that. The Communications Workers of America, the Carpenters Union. Those are the ones that immediately come to mind.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Strictly father and son unions.
I never knew that, Jim. I appreciate you letting us know. Thank you.
That was one of the real purposes for affirmative action, was to break the father and son unions open.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Right.
Thanks for that. I didn't realize that.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, the armed services, too. The Air Force and the Army and the Navy, they were
That's true.
segregated,
Yeah.
during the wars. That was true.
If you lived in Ocala specifically,
Right.
but it doesn't have to be just if you live in Ocala, but I would love to hear your stories, especially if you happen to be African American. All right, so...
Well, Well, Juanita's very wise.
I have another comment, another quote from, or another soundbite, I should say, from Juanita Cunningham, and I thank her for. I mean, I didn't ask her if I could use these quotes, but they are public. They're on the internet. The next one is another one of her children. Her daughter wanted an ice cream cone here in Ocala, and this is Juanita Cunningham remembering that story.
I remember once paying a bill at a drugstore, and my daughter asked could she go across the store and get an ice cream cone, and I told her no, she couldn't do that because we didn't have dinner. But she said, Mom, it's going to be a long time before we have dinner. I said, no, you can't go over there. I was trying to prevent her from having the experience of being told we don't serve colored at this counter.
And that was the experience. I mean,
Here in Ocala.
right here.
Yes.
And Juanita Cunningham, obviously, in our time, this is not ancient history. This is like I think she made that tape last year.
Yeah.
And we don't realize it. We don't realize it as white people exactly what the black person's experience is. Not 100%. I mean, sometimes. I mean, I'll be the first to say that sometimes I think there are people who go overboard. I think Al Sharpton goes overboard. Jesse Jackson goes overboard.
Exactly.
I mean, absolutely. But at the same time, if you have the intelligence and everything necessary for a job, and the only reason you didn't get hired was because of your color of your skin, then that's has to have been one of the worst things. After everything else was legally changed, when attitude changes always come last.
Right.
They're probably not changed completely yet, and probably is not even necessary. They've not changed
On both
yet.
sides, all sides.
On both sides,
On
yes.
all
But for the
sides.
most part, most of the good jobs were controlled by white employers.
Right,
And
exactly.
while that's not necessarily true now, but I'm just trying to understand the plight that they went through, and of course I've been speaking to many people about this, and the whole Paradise Park thing was an eye-opener for me. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, this is Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
I am not African American, but I grew up in Ocala in the 50s, and I've got two little examples here.
Okay.
I remember the colored only and the white only drinking fountains in the grocery stores. And then I had a situation, I was about 17, and I took my mother's, and she really loved her too. She had a cleaning lady, I'll call her Mrs. Jones. Took her to the doctor. Well, there was a colored waiting room and a white waiting room. So I go into the colored waiting room and I go, is Mrs. Jones finished yet? And the person said to me, you call her Mrs. Jones? Instead of like Sally or Corey.
No, really?
Oh.
I said, I certainly do.
Oh.
Well, that stands out in my mind just so
Well, see, and
vividly today.
that's a testament to you, Kathy. I mean, the fact that you understood what, I mean, your attitude changed before maybe many of your peers' attitudes changed.
I had sort of a strong sense of right and wrong.
Yeah, you do.
Well, that's good.
I really did.
Because that's a leader that's a leader when somebody can do that. That's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. But I'll never forget that. I mean, how am I going to know when she's here? I am in the colored waiting room. How am I going to know when she's through? We'll let you know.
Oh, wow. Isn't
Thanks
that
a
something?
lot.
Thank you,
Wow.
Kathy. Thank you.
Don't do me any favors.
I was
Really?
I was.
Okay.
Gosh.
Thank you.
All righty.
That's a wonderful
and
perspective.
Kathy brings up an interesting thing, because there were certainly a lot of white people who were definitely wanting the changes that needed to be made. It wasn't like everybody was opposed to it. Mrs. Cunningham, in the last clip that I have from her, talks about the League of Women Voters at that time here in Ocala. And the League of Women Voters at that time was all white women. And so listen to what she has to say about that.
We blacks were meeting and trying to get the city to extend the city limits beyond what is now Martin Luther King Avenue. At that time, it was 16th Avenue. There was a group of white women who had set up the League of Women Voters for Marion County. Some of them are my friends today. And they invited black women to join in. They knew what we were trying to do. And I believe until today, had not it been for those white women who were going to city council with us and working with us, we would have had a more difficult time getting the city limits extended beyond 16th Avenue.
It is really interesting to listen to the folks who went through this to be talking about it. And I worked with a black lady one time, and she said, "I wish I could be white just for one day." And I said, "Why?" Mm-hmm. And she said, "So that I could go and get a mortgage for a house." And I was like, "Really? I mean, do you really think that makes a difference?" I don't know if she was exaggerating or not, mm-hmm. and I really still don't know to this point. But that was her feeling anyway. She had the feeling that I didn't delve into what she was going through, mm-hmm. but I imagine she was trying to get a mortgage on a house, a loan for a house, and was being turned down all the time. And she was probably blaming it on her race or on the prejudice against her race. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing. I don't know how accurate it was. I don't know what her credit score was.
Yeah.
I remember I myself had a hard time in getting a mortgage at that point in my life. And I said mm-hmm. to her, I said, that's what I went through too, but I didn't blame it on anything other than me.
Yeah.
It is really an interesting thing, and if you lived through it, I would love to hear from you. Today is Martin Luther King Jr.'s day. We celebrate his birthday. We celebrate his life. We celebrate his contributions. I've had so many arguments with folks who have tried to argue what the Emancipation Proclamation was about, argue what the segregation was about, argue that segregation was desegregation was a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this, even I don't have the clip, but even Miss Cunningham in one of the other clips that I didn't choose to use said that when they desegregated in Howard it was Howard High School at the time, was no longer going to be Howard High School, that it was not a good thing for them because mm-hmm. now they didn't have their football team anymore.
Right.
So it was a very big blow to desegregate and to change that, I guess, to a middle school.
Howard Middle. My children went there to Howard Middle School.
Yeah, I know, but at once upon a time it was an all black school. Right. Wasn't Pheasanton also an all black school at one time as well?
Yes. And then when desegregation came in, they changed, which they should have been. But you're right, they lost their football team.
Yeah. All right, let me take another phone call. Thank you for calling and for waiting. Good morning. You're on the air.
Thank you, Larry and Robin. It's Mark, and thank you for having this subject on the radio. I think that takes a lot of courage and honesty. So I just would make a couple observations about Marion County. I haven't been here for more than 20 years, and not a whole lifetime like some folks, but it was explained to me once that how would you feel as an American walking into the Judicial Center when the Confederate statue happened to be in front of it? And I said, I'd never really crossed my mind. And he said, a fellow Marine was explaining to me, he goes, well, can you imagine if you were Jewish walking into a courthouse center in Germany with a statue of Hitler? And I said, okay, it kind of made sense when he put it in that context. I'd not thought of that. Also would just share from a contemporary standpoint that there are two popular political figures that are not in my party, named John McCain and also Vice President Dick Cheney when he was a congressman. Both voted against the Martin Luther King holiday. So, I'm from Abraham Lincoln's hometown, and I shook John Kennedy's hand, and I love them both. So I think the country shifted with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and you see who marches with the Confederate flag now. It's us conservative Democrats that still believe in God. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Just some interesting perspectives from our side. Thanks.
Well, I don't know that your side is different than my side. I don't like the idea that we're somehow separated because of party. Mm-hmm. I think that we are the same in regard to a lot of these issues.
Exactly.
But anyway, the contributions of Dr. King clearly, in my mind, have been good contributions. They made a huge impact on the last thing that needed to be changed, which was attitude.
Yes.
Attitude needed to be changed. Attitude maybe of the politicians that he named, that Mark just named. Maybe they needed to be changed. Dr. King, I think, made a contribution in that. Other legislators made a contribution in the legal part of it, but laws only go so far. Attitude had to be changed.
Yes.
We still have attitudes that need to be changed. And I think that's why it's important to remember. I love the fact that they've decided that today's march would be in the name of unity.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. Icy roads blamed for 5 deaths in the Northeast. Near Philadelphia, a tractor-trailer jackknifed on I-476, causing an 11-car pileup that left 2 dead. Volunteer firefighter Joe Bardroff.
All of a sudden, all the cars in front of me started running into the side of the tractor-trailer. I spun around twice, caught my grip finally on the side of the road.
Forecasters warn of freezing temperatures again tonight in much of the Northeast. President Obama expected to outline some higher taxes for the wealthy in tomorrow's State of the Union address.
A real central tenet for this is going to be a big increase in the capital gains tax for high earners. The president also wants to get rid of a tax break on certain inheritances and also charge a fee to the largest financial firm.
Fox's Doug Luzader. For lower wage earners, there's word the president wants to expand the child care tax credit and a tax credit for some couples where both work.